Hello and welcome back to Deep Pulls. This is episode 8 of the fun and informative Magic the Gathering pack opening podcast. This is episode 8 of the 69 consecutive episodes we are going to do to start this series. Yesterday we saw an extremely powerful and luckily pretty valuable for my friend Matt pack of Theros Beyond Death, a collector's edition I should say. We're going to visit another very recent and very powerful set, and that is the Throne of Eldraine. A lot of cards in here got knocked out of their various formats because of how good they are. We would love to get some of those, but in the meantime, let's take a look and figure out what we know. Here, first things first, this is Lonesome Unicorn. I'll hold it a little better so you can see all the stats there. My favorite thing about this card, honestly, is the adventure mechanic. The adventure mechanic calls back to a long history of kind of two cards on two spells, I should say, on a single card mechanics, starting with split cards from Invasion. Allied colored split cards were in that set, where one half of the card was a single color, and then the other half of the card was one of its allied colors. That eventually, in Apocalypse, the last set of that block included enemy color cards. Probably the most famous of this entire cycle is Fire and Ice, which is a card that still sees a bit of play today, but we've seen tons of variations on them. Currently, we're printing a lot of modal double face cards, but we've seen split cards in Amonkhet that had the mechanic where you had to play them and then you could cast Aftermath, that you could cast the other version out of your graveyard. Adventure's kind of a new version of this. You can always cast the Adventure spell or the creature spell to start off. After you cast the Adventure, you can then cast the creature spell itself. So you can either go Adventure into Creature, or just Adventure, or just Creature. Really cool card. Interesting little mechanic here. You can get 5/5 out of this if you pay a lot of mana and spend some time. Really cool. Didn't say please. I have a lot of fun memories of this one. Milling was a really cool mechanic in that Throne of Eldraine limited environment. There is a version of this card that did the same thing prior to Didn't Say Please, and I don't know why off the top of my head. I cannot remember what it is called, but it was also a 3-mana counterspell that milled 3. You can see here, mill's actually not yet on this card. Mill did not become a keyword until afterwards. Nowadays, this card would say, counter target spell, its controller mills 3 cards. Very interesting, and just a little upside on cancel. Here we go with a Rimrock Knight. Again, we've got the adventure mechanic here on a fun little cool aggressive red creature. 3/1 can't block. Is an interesting little drawback. Boulder Rush actually is very funny because Boulder Rush is just tacked onto this common, but in World Wake, they literally just made that spell. They made a 1-mana instant, target creature gets +2/+0. No one played it. But they played this, which has that, and also an interesting creature on top of it. Next things next, we have True Love's Kiss. Exile target artifact or enchantment, draw a card. As a cool little cantrip here, they put the little exile upside on it. Without the exile upside and with just the destroy target artifact or enchantment, this is a reprint of Slice and Twine, which did the same thing for the same basic mana cost. In that case, it was 2 green. That was in Scars of Mirrodin. I'm sure that was considered more powerful there than this was here, because in Scars of Mirrodin, artifact synergy was way high. Artifacts were all over the place, as it was Mirrodin. We've got here a Memory Theft, another coercion variant. We've talked about coercion before. The kind of first version of this spell from Vision, same mana cost, also sorcery. Got to look at their hand and grab something out of your choice. Recent cards have had more upside. This one, for example, lets you get adventure and adventure as well. So interestingly, can be kind of a 2-for-1. Pretty cool in that format. We've got a Rose Thorn Apprentice. Kind of does the mana fixing thing 2 different ways, both in its adventure ability and also in its tap ability. These cards got really interesting because they were kind of, this one in particular, because it has like a mana neutral sorcery ability. If you found things that cared a lot about sorceries, sometimes maybe even like very fringy Storm decks could care about this, but interesting little card here, and very good in that format. Signpost Scarecrow. Scarecrow as a creature type was really pushed in Shadowmoor block That set had a lot of Scarecrows, and they were designed to be kind of scary, twisted, as Shadowmoor was sort of the dark side to Lorwyn's kind of sunny, happy fairytale version. Throne of Eldraine also has a lot of those fairytale elements, so not surprising to see magic Scarecrows back here. A relatively kind of boring creature, all things considered, although I have used that filtering ability to power some adamant cards. And speaking of adamant cards, we've got one of those right here, Unexplained Visions. Adamant as a mechanic rewarded you for paying more of a certain color of mana to cast it. In terms of recent Magic history, the closest thing I can think of that had somewhat of an analogy to this was the 2 hybrid mechanic. The 2 hybrid mechanic was basically in Shadowmoor as well. So again, going back to those sort of fairytale origins that this set has, where you could pay either 2 generic mana or a single colored mana in a mana symbol. So you would see kind of like 2-white in it, for example. And Spectral Procession, which may be the best card from this series, although Beseech the Queen, the black version, sees a lot of play. Spectral Procession, you could either pay 6 colorless, 6 generic, 2 generic, 2 white, 4 generic and a white, or triple white to get it. This is kind of a similar thing where you get a kind of better version of the spell the more colored mana you can put into it. In this case, you just get a little bit of extra bonus besides the drawing 3 cards. Now we've got here a Knight of the Keep. This is not that exciting. It is a 3/2 for 2 and a white. Remember we were talking about the Farhaven Adept from the Zendikar Rising set, how like you don't see a lot of 3/3s for 2 and a white. Yeah, here you go. Here's a 3/2 for 2 and a white with no abilities other than being a knight, which mattered a little bit in that set, but you didn't really want to play this. Now we've got here a Red Cap Raiders. Red Cap Raiders played really coolly with this kind of human, non-human synergy that you could kind of see, maybe not synergy, but maybe split, I should say, in Throne of Eldraine. You can get extra benefit by tapping non-humans when you use this. Red and green both in Throne of Eldraine have these non-human synergies. Non-human as a actual idea was first in the Innistrad set, where Innistrad actually cared about your monsters, your ghouls and ghosts and werewolves, things like that, and then compared it to the humans. So that was the first set where you would actually see, tap target non-human, or in some cases, destroy target human. Oh no, I don't want to get destroyed. But here's a version of that here, playing in this set as well. We've got here a Wandermare, playing back to the adventure mechanic. This was the signpost white-green card in that set. Just a solid body, cares about adventures. Very, very cool for that limited deck. We've got here as well a Glass Casket. This ended up being, in a way, sort of a variation of kind of different pacifism variants we've seen recently. Same mana cost, that 1 and a white, does deal with a creature in a more permanent sense because it actually takes it off the battlefield, so it can't tap or use any, have any static abilities that matter here. But the main thing that this one does, it's an artifact and just kind of cleanly gets rid, makes it kind of hard to remove, I should say, as an artifact, and it takes the creature off the battlefield, so it can't be sacrificed. The first version of a card like this I can think of, where it was a 2 mana enchantment that actually exiled a creature, was Journey into Nowhere, which was in Zendikar. That had kind of older wording because that had a triggered ability to remove the creature and another one to put it back. But this kind of does the same thing in terms of a lot cleaner Magic wording here. But Glass Casket, very popular card right now in Magic. We've got here an Inspiring Veteran. We talked about the signpost white-green card here. It was a signpost white-red card. 2/2 pumps all knights. Knight synergy was a very big thing for all of the Mardu colors here. So you saw a little bit of actual like Mardu red, white, black cards. Mostly you saw it either just the red, white, or white, black, or red, black. In this case, this is red, white, pumps all your knights up. Really, really decent card in that limited format as well. And we got a pretty good card here, although not a particularly expensive one. A standard defying creature, Bone Crusher Giant. Just an absolute powerhouse in every sense of the word. The stomp ability, compares actually pretty decently to a lot of burn spells in Red's history. I'm thinking things like Lightning Strike. I'm thinking my dog is barking because something's happening, and she shouldn't be barking right now. But in terms of this, the main thing here is that we've got a 4/3 that, pretty big for its size. Even without the adventure, this card would be pretty good. A 4/3 creature that kind of punches your opponent for damaging it. But with Stomp on it, it's almost a guaranteed 2-for-1 whenever you draw it, and has made it super, super strong and probably the defining red card in this standard environment. Besides that, I'm glad, maybe since I put the Bone Crusher Giant down, my dog is not excited because this card is just a fairy token. A lot of stuff in this set made these. It's kind of cool we got blue ones here because the first fairy tokens that I recall were back in, again, Lorwyn block. Lorwyn and Shadowmoor were the fairytale sets, and those were black 1/1 flying fairy rogues. So we just got the mono blue version here. Well, I thank you again for joining us on an episode of Deep Pulls. Hopefully somewhere around my face you will see like, subscribe buttons, and you should also see the playlist that has all the episodes of Deep Pulls. I want to thank you so much for joining me again here today, and hopefully you'll join us tomorrow for episode 9 of Deep Pulls.